What's going on, guys? It's Mike Norris. I'm here today with Brady Morgan. What's going on, Brady?
Hey, what's going on, man? Appreciate you having me on the show.
Yeah, me too. So Brady and I connected on LinkedIn, which is probably a little bit of a trend now for some of these guests here. But I love LinkedIn, and we were just talking a little bit. I know he does too. But I'd like to get started by having you just kind of introduce yourself, talk about what you do and all that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, a year and 2 months ago, I started being an entrepreneur. I didn't really know what I wanted to do because I think it's hard to just jump in and do something, especially being an entrepreneur. It's such a sexy thing nowadays. It was like, what do you even do? There's so many opportunities out there. So I started a podcast. Podcast started of really just documenting my journey towards financial freedom, me and my wife. And, talked about that for a little bit. And then I started just interviewing people who are entrepreneurs just on topics of entrepreneurship, struggles, successes, strategies to scale, stuff like that. I was like, wow, I like this a lot more. So literally 2 months ago, like a year after I started the podcast, I rebranded it from Budget Trek, like a trek journey with a budget, to entrepreneurism, literally the act of being an entrepreneur. And since then, have been doing 3 episodes a week, posting a piece of content almost every single day, and really just using that to promote my personal and business brand.
Nice.
I'm really upfront about this too, is people, they're like, oh, you've had a podcast for that long and you can probably make money from it. I'm really upfront. I don't make money from the podcast because I think I do to a degree, but it's in back-end monetization through my other businesses. But in my personal opinion, when you slap tons and tons and tons of ads within your podcast, which bigger podcasts do, I just think it dilutes the message. So that being my podcast, I don't want to do that, Besides the podcast though, I was talking about it before we started recording. At the beginning of COVID, I was at a 9-to-5. I was working as a financial analyst, have a finance background. I was going to move to a sales position. And then long story short, COVID happened. I'd already quit my job. Just nothing worked. Right. Yeah. And granted, I'm like 5 months in to having a podcast. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I just knew I wanted to start my own business. So me and my business partner started what's called financial automation, or what was called financial automation, being basically business's digital CFO, but from a more personal perspective, not software based. Now, that sounds great. Don't get me wrong, but it's also a lot of manual labor and it's not cheap. Sure. And the idea, I think, was a good one, but either the way we marketed it or just because of COVID, it just was bleeding money and it just wasn't working. So I was thinking, okay, why should we keep doing this? Let's maybe let go and take a step back and see what other opportunities are out there, right? I don't really care what we do, but let's just see what other opportunities are out there. So then we started the virtual assistant staffing agency. And that's literally the name. We call it VASA. And through that, it's been great. It's really just helping, like it says, staffing virtual assistants for business owners who want to scale. The reason being is virtual assistants are really cheap and they help you delegate low income tasks. That might be email follow-up, might be social media management, could be lead generation, whatever. Stuff that's easily delegatable. You can give it to a virtual assistant for anywhere from $3.50 to about $5 an hour. Pretty cheap. So now you got your time back to actually do things you want to do within your business, whether that's sales, whether that's fulfillment, or maybe you just don't want to do anything in your business anymore. Maybe you want to go on a vacation or whatever. Now you can. You got someone working for you while you're not working. So like I said, and we talked about it before we started recording, it's more than just a virtual assistant. It's helping you get your time back, and it's helping you build out systems and processes and basically being able to remove yourself from your business so you can work on it rather than in it. And that's a big struggle people have is, you might be making a lot of money in your business and that's great, but how much are you actually working? Are you working 60 hours a week? Are you working 80 hours a week? And if you love it and that's your passion, that's great, but it's really easy to get burnt out at the end of the day. And I don't think anyone lives their life to work. That's just my personal opinion, but people work their entire lives. So how can we get you to a point to where your business can still flourish and be making a ton of money and whatever, but you're working less and less and less on it? That's the goal there. So that's where I'm at today. A little bit about me. And again, thank you for having me on the show, man.
Yeah, of course. Well, let's start. I'd want to talk to you about the podcast as well, but let's start with the virtual assistant stuff because I think it's pretty cool. And I've had guests on here before who've used virtual assistants for various things. I had on Andy Crestodina, who's like this big content marketer, and he talked about this study he did, and he had a virtual assistant basically do all the research for him and everything, and then he compiled it into an article. And I think that's an excellent use of
Yeah,
time, especially if you're, like a well-esteemed content marketer. People always wonder, like, how do these people become so big? How are they doing all this stuff? And odds are they're not doing it themselves alongside
exactly.
their entire day job. I mean, even like this production, I have video people who help me chop this up and do the emails and everything that come with this. Like, sorry if you guys thought this was on me. I try my best. I have a hand in it, but I'm not doing it all. But I think those are excellent uses of your time because, truthfully, you almost have to establish for yourself, like, what is worth my time and what is not, and what is, I don't know if you're familiar with Naval Ravikant. You're here.
I'm not. No.
So he's a marketing guy. I know he started a few businesses. He sold them. He talks a lot about wealth and time. But when he says wealth, he's not talking about richness, like extravagance. He's talking about being able to use your time for yourself. And he talks about establishing an hourly rate for yourself, like a going rate of what you would want your hourly rate to be. And then if you have any tasks that you would deem being below your hourly rate, you just don't do those things. It's not worth your time. And I think you should check him out. He's really big on Twitter. He's got a little bit of a podcast too. He was on Joe Rogan. I don't know if you listened to that.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a pretty cool guy. But I think that concept fits in pretty well with the model you're talking about.
Well, it's crazy, man. People do not think they can replicate themselves, right? And off the surface, no. But that's why you need processes in place. The content marketer you're talking about, he or she, I don't know, but they couldn't just get someone off the street and say, hey, do this research, right? There's a process to it. There's things that have to be in place for that project to actually be successful. So it's really important for people to understand that it's not just hiring a virtual assistant. It's documenting every single thing you do down to a T to where that relationship is actually efficient, right? And if I create some sort of process of how I edit my podcast very, very vaguely, I'm going to get a lot of questions. That's not an efficient relationship with the virtual assistant. But if I'm super like, hey, here's 56 steps on how I edit the audio of a podcast, super, super specific. Now come to questions that the questions you have are probably answered at the end of the day. So that's why I think people miss the ball is you can replicate yourself. And the question I always ask is, how much production could you do this week if you had another you? Or if you had 3 U's or 4 U's or 5 U's, right? And guess what? Those U's don't charge the same hourly rate that you're going to charge yourself. They charge a fraction of it, right? People are like, okay, they start to frame their mind around, I no longer have 40 hours a week. I have 200 hours a week spread across the entire team. How can we utilize that, right? So that's great. But now it comes down to you, the business owner, to document every single one of the processes. That there's 3 different categories. You document all the processes of things you don't like doing first, right? And just like you said, what do you not like doing? Do you not like sending emails? Document it. You don't like managing your social media? Document it. That's number 1. 2, it's things that you shouldn't be doing. We are more than capable of creating a website, but do I really know how to create a really, really robust website? No. So I shouldn't be doing that. Sure. 3rd is things you don't know how to do. If I'm trying to create an app, I don't have any tech background. I don't know how to do that. So why would I waste months and months and months studying to do something that I could pay someone a low hourly rate to do for me, right? So once you put tasks in those 3 buckets, and you're probably going to have some tasks in more buckets than the other, you start to document those processes, and that's what you delegate. But I always say to people, do not delegate your entire sales process or your entire fulfillment process, because that is literally understand that whatever is not generating revenue can be delegated, and whatever is generating revenue needs to be kept under you.
I like that. Yeah, that makes sense. So do you have people delegate things that they don't know how to do as well?
Yeah, and it's really, it's specific per person, right? Every single business is different. Let's say you're a digital marketer. Digital marketing is a really big topic. There's a lot of different things within digital marketing. And let's say you're going to write blog posts for people. Let's just assume you don't know how to write a blog.
Okay.
there are people out there, even though there might be in a third world country, that are $4 an hour that are probably really, really good at writing blogs, right?
Sure.
So and if that's the bread and butter of your business, just delegate it out. Of course, you need to do your due diligence and make sure the quality of the work is there. But again, if you don't know how to do something, delegate it out if it's an integral part of your business, right?
Yeah.
But the flip side of that is if you're doing a task that you don't know how to do and it really doesn't make a difference in your business, then just cut it out completely. There's no point.
Sure.
But I think when you get a virtual assistant, I think it forces people to be real with themselves and their business of what's actually an important task and what's not an important task. And once you're real with yourself and you really have transparency into what your business actually entails, then you can actually begin to scale in an efficient way.
Yeah. And I think it's the smart business owners who come to that realization too.
Mm-hmm.
There are some people out there who think to themselves, I need to be the best at everything that my company does all the time.
Exactly.
And that's just not even realistic. And
right.
I mean, if you are, what are you doing? Are you hiring people who are intentionally worse than you at things? That's not how you get better.
Well, the flip side to that too, man, is I agree with that. I agree that you don't need to be the best at everything that you're doing, but I think you still need to understand the operations behind it, right?
Well,
you might not know how to create an app. That's fine. But you need to understand what you want this app to look like, what you want the functionality to be. But I think people also delegate too soon. Sure. They start a business, they don't even know what they're doing, and they start delegating things out. And then that relationship is inefficient, and they're mad at us or they're mad at their VA. And it's like, hey, take a look at yourself. You should have known you weren't ready for a virtual assistant, and that's fine. Virtual assistants aren't for everyone. Do I think they can help everyone? Yes, but they can help everyone when everyone is ready.
That makes a ton of sense. And it's almost like bringing on a new employee,
Yeah, exactly.
Has done a ton of new, we've just grown quite a bit in the last, we've been around like 8 years. And and we started with 2 people in a basement, we got like 57 employees, but as we continue to expand and everything, it's looking at our processes we have in place. And then every time you get a question from a new employee, it's like, okay, how can we make sure going forward that when we onboard people, they understand this from the onset so that we don't have to, so that we're not asked this question again, right? It's all about efficiency and time saving and trying to get them everything, make sure everything is documented. Like you said, the 57-step checklist for launching a podcast, which, by the way, I think that would make some great content if you made that into a post or something. But that's exactly what we try to do too. And I would imagine it's no different.
Yeah, and that's why we tell people, I've worked corporate before. I've seen SOPs. I didn't really understand what SOP was when I was working in corporate, but they use the term SOP in military, standard operating procedure. It's literally how you do something. Mm-hmm. And from what I understand, it seems as if SOP derived from military operations. So obviously it was meant for a specific procedure to be followed. No questions asked, no mistakes, nothing, right?
Sure.
So what that tells me is, okay, the military created this for a reason to document processes for people so that they can be efficient as a team. So when people have SOPs that are not specific and they're very vague, you are not helping your team out in any way by doing that.
Sure.
You're actually making it's detrimental to the team at that point because no one knows what you mean by click the red box twice. What red box? What side of the screen is the red box on? What does the red box say? What am I going to see after I click the red box? That's what's important, right? So there's no questions at all. So when I say get specific, I say get as specific as possible.
Yeah.
We use PandaDoc. I don't know if
we do too.
PandaDoc, whatever. They're all the same pretty much. But PandaDoc, we have an SOP in place for sending a contract. Super simple thing. It's not hard. It could take you literally probably 3 minutes. Our SOP is 2 pages long, single spaced, because saying, hey, go to this website. There's a green button on the right side that says this. Click that. You're going to see something that comes up. So stuff like that. Yeah. People don't think that deep. But I promise you, if you just spend like a weekend documenting everything your company does, just like get super hyper focused on that, it works, man. And when you delegate stuff, there's no questions. It's so efficient. It's crazy, really. But until you do that, people don't quite understand how a virtual assistant can be that efficient for them.
It's worth the investment, man. It's the ROI of your time. You put in
exactly
time now. You can minimize the input now to generate a lot of output later.
Exactly.
Trying to expand your inputs to increase your outputs at the same level. And I think at some point everyone reaches that breaking point where they hit that tipping point. Like they can't make any more money by putting in more effort because they're putting in way too much time or effort already.
Exactly.
And it's not scalable anymore. So what do? Exactly. When you hit that point? You delegate. I mean, it's what you got to do.
Yeah. And I think I don't want people to think delegation is the only way. Automation is also a way, right? Sure. There's great platforms out there like Zapier, Integromat, whatever, where it's based. I think Integromat calls themselves, or maybe Zapier, like the glue of the internet, right? Sure. It just connects different platforms together. And it's like, if you don't want to pay a virtual assistant, which it's an employee, you have to pay them, right? Just try Integromat or Zapier. It's like $25 a month, and you can just play around with automating parts of your business because that works too. I think at the end of the day, it's just thinking, how can I get my time back in the most efficient way possible?
Yeah, well, I like that too. And we use Zapier here. I've never heard of, what's the other one?
Integromat, but Integromat's more, I think, more advanced.
Okay.
We had some people come in and utilize Integromat for BASA, our VA staffing agency. It's like custom code and stuff, and I don't understand any of that. So I think there's more capabilities with custom code, but not everyone, again, has those capabilities. So do what you can now and just use Zapier. It's really, really simple.
Yeah. So and that's something that we're premier Google partners, and we talk to our Google team a lot. And something that Google always tells us is to rely on automation where possible, but then free up your time to do things that only humans can do, because machines can't do everything.
Exactly.
The things they can do, a lot of times they're better at it than humans are anyway. Like I can't, if I'm managing a PPC campaign, I can't, decide like in real time data, this person's more likely to convert than this person, so I'm going to bid higher, because normally when I'm at the 2 spot for people like this, I have a higher conversion rate. Like I'm not sitting there pulling these. There's no chance in hell
exactly
a human could do that better than a machine could. But you know what can do better than a machine at? The strategy behind it, or the ad copy, or maybe not the ad copy these days. Who knows? But honestly, like there's so much that goes into it that you still can and have to do as a human, but you don't have to do these other things.
Yeah, exactly. And there's so many ways to automate everything nowadays. Like something we do, we have a whole process, right? And it's like there's a client side and an applicant side. We have to place the applicants with the clients, but the applicant to client ratio is probably like 20-1. So that's a lot of people to be dealing with, and depending upon how many clients we have in the pipeline, that can get really, really busy really, really quickly. So that's not something I want to delegate as far as like emails to applicants, because the way our process works, and I know we'll probably get into this later, but just like a little snippet of it is they send us video recordings of interviews, right? And the questions that are in those interviews they have to answer is different per job position. Like, what are you applying for? It's going to be different, obviously. I'm not going to ask a content creator how he's generated leads in the past. That makes zero sense, right? So those emails have to be specific to who's applying for what position. Now, if I expected my VA to get that 100% correct 100% of the time, that's naive on my part, right? But there's so much automation with Zapier and Active Campaign and all these different things that we can automatically send those emails to applicants as they apply, right? And it's done for us. So like that's why I agree with you, is automate where you can, but understand that you cannot automate everything.
Yeah.
It has to be human interaction at some point.
Yeah. So if someone were to, let's say I came to you today, Brady, and I was like, I'm interested in a virtual assistant.
Yeah.
Don't really know for what, but I know that my time is valuable. How would that process look? How would you go about doing all this?
Yeah, for sure. So if someone comes to me and says, hey, I need a VA, one, I didn't know what you do, because at the end of the day, I don't even know what you could delegate if I don't know what you do. Then we would go through a process of saying, okay, you don't even know what you want a VA for. It's really important that you understand what this VA is going to be for, so that relationship is efficient. So we're going to, like I said, we're going to write down a list of things that you don't like doing. So let's assume you're in real estate. I don't know.
Sure.
You don't want to follow up with potential leads. You don't want to, do research on new listings. Might take too much time. You don't want to post on social media for, highlight of the week or whatever, right? Okay, that's fine. Now, those are 3 different skill sets, I would say. So we really just need an administrative assistant at that point. Someone that's pretty well versed. Maybe they have some some experience with social media, experience with just time management, organization, stuff like that. Okay, great. We know what we need, right? Now I need to know from you, do you have these processes in place? You might not, right? So I'm gonna say, hey, I'm gonna have some homework for you. You want those 3 things delegated. While I am finding your perfect virtual assistant, I need you to document every single one of those processes. And I'm gonna walk through those with you, right? Don't think I'm just gonna leave you to do it yourself. I'm gonna walk through that with you because we gotta get those as specific as possible.
Sure.
Via order form is submitted, we start our process, you got your homework. That's step 1. Step 2 is we go behind the scenes. We vet, interview, I would say anywhere from 10 to 20 applicants, really just depends. And then they have to go through a series of basically just obstacles. One is an English proficiency test. That's very, very important to us because we don't want someone coming in the door that doesn't speak English that well,
Sure.
right? Yeah. Now, the good thing about the Philippines is they ranked really, really high. There's like an international English test. They ranked really, really high on that test. So a lot of people are fluent in Tagalog, which is the Filipino national language, and English, which is great.
Nice.
Now, people are better at it than others, just like people who speak Spanish and English are better at it than others. Yeah. So our main goal is to find that. Now, the English proficiency test is not something that's like 500 questions because that's ridiculous. It's 15 questions of, hey, just fill in the blank of the best answer that you think should go here. That just shows us that they understand grammar. Reason being is a lot of things get lost in translation from Tagalog to English, just like from English to Spanish or wherever else. People just say things differently, right? Like in Spanish, the adjective that describes the noun goes after the noun. If I'm saying the red dog, they say the dog red, just from complete translation. So we have to make sure they understand that. The last 5 questions is me reading out like a little short snippet, story or whatever, and asking a question. So that shows me if they answer those correctly, they understand what I'm saying and they can answer correctly. So it's very, very important. Listening and reading are 2 different skill sets when it comes to a different language. So we make sure that they're well-versed in both. Now, once they get to that point, just like we said, the email blast goes out of, hey, I need you to send me an interview of you answering these questions. Now that fulfills a few different things. Number 1, it saves us time because we don't have to interview every single person because I told my team before this really got ramped up, let's assume we have 100 applicants. We're going to interview every single one of them. No, there's no way. There's no way. So it's like, if we tell, hey, I'll place you in 8 months, I'll give, that's just not efficient, right? We try to place in 10 business days or less, right? So we have to have that as an efficient relationship. So that email blast goes out. It fulfills by saving us time. Second is there's a barrier for those virtual assistants because they actually have to do work. They have to record a video of themselves answering questions and submit it. Now that's going to weed out people who don't want to put in the work. We don't want those people anyway, right? Yep. We don't want the people. It's such a simple task. And if you're not willing to do this, then you're not cut out to be someone that we place. That's fine. Doesn't hurt my feelings either way.
Same thing.
Yeah. But the third thing is the interview is laid out in specific questions and has steps of what they're supposed to do after that. That shows us they can actually follow directions. Now, that seems like a very elementary thing to expect of someone, but you would be surprised, right? And that's not just Filipino, it's American, it's European. People have a hard time following directions. So that tells us if they have a hard time following a very simple set of instructions, they're not going to be able to follow someone else's SOP, right? So there's 3 different vetting, aspects that they go through just through that interview that is very, very specific. Now, once we get the interview and we choose the best one, you're probably thinking, okay, what happens to the others? Well, the others, we have basically a community of virtual assistants of those that haven't gotten placed. Reason being is the ones that were good enough, but just weren't good enough to get placed, we send them to community because that means we can place them quicker. We know who they are. We know their skill sets. And the quicker we can place a virtual assistant, the better we look. It's just the nature of owning a business. And the more quality of work we know, okay, we don't even have to vet this person. We could place this person tomorrow because it's perfect, right? Mm-hmm. So then we have the person that's perfect for the job. I would say, hey, Michael, so-and-so is the applicant that we've chosen. They do this, they have experience in this. Attached is a video recording of their interview. Watch and let me know your thoughts. So now it's up to you. right?
I like that. Cool.
All you have to do is watch. You don't have to interview anyone. You don't have to do anything. You just watch, and you're gonna get to know them pretty well. I mean, we ask them. It's only 10 questions, but it's 10 questions specific to their professional experience and then specific to the job they're applying for. So now you can watch, say, okay, could this person be good in my business? Not only that, but you're going to hear their level of English, right? And you might say, you know what, they're going to be doing cold calling for me. They probably need to be better. Can we find someone else? So let's assume you tell me, hey, they're not a good applicant. That's fine. That's on us at that point. We should have sourced somebody better. We're going to keep doing this until you find the perfect applicant. So now you found the perfect applicant. You said, hey, this person's great. I'm ready to go. We schedule what's called a placement call. That's an opportunity for me, my hiring manager, you, and the applicant to hop on a call. Now, it's really just to set expectations. I'd say, hey, so-and-so, this is Michael. He's going to be your new employer. Hey, Michael, this is so-and-so. It's going to be your new virtual assistant. The schedule is this, let's say 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, $4 an hour. You're going to be doing this, this, and this. Michael has SOPs in place. Me and him are going to go through this together, but just understand those are what you're going to be following to fulfill the tasks. And then I'll give an opportunity for you to ask any questions, the person ask any questions, and then we're good to go. We did the handoff, but we don't stop there. Again, like I said, we're going to go through the SOPs, make sure they're good, right? Make sure they're specific as possible. We also have an in-house client training, 30 to 45 minutes. Very, very simple. The purpose of it is for you to understand, if you've never worked with virtual assistants before, to understand how to manage and train that virtual assistant. But not only that, but also the culture. Now, the culture of any country is just different, what they value, how they work. And regardless of that, everyone has different religions. So you would think, I believe Filipinos are Catholics, I think, but they also have their own like national holidays. So we talk about that. Talk about how they're so loyal. We talk about how you have to be really specific with how you want something done because they don't want to disappoint you. That's a culture. We talk about how you should pay them, how you shouldn't, skip on paying them, just stuff. It's very simple stuff, but it's just something you need to know, right? Now the client training, there's no videos. It's all text because I wanted to make it as quick as possible. It's not something you need to spend hours on. We're trying to help you save time at the end of the day. Why would I create a training that takes you 5 hours to go through? That makes no sense to me, right? But we have different tactics or different exercises in there, that you can go through by yourself to kind of make this efficient. There is a spreadsheet in there, just like I talked about, tasks you don't like doing, tasks you don't know how to do, and tasks you shouldn't be doing. That's just an opportunity for you to document everything so you can see it in front of you. Second one is frequently asked questions. It's not frequently asked questions about our company. It's FAQs about your company. Just like you said, when clients frequently ask you questions, you want to have answers to those questions documented. So basically just start there. We have a document that's like an SOP template. If you don't know how to write an SOP, you have access to this. And then we have just other little things in there that like a VA budget, kind of what you can expect if you were to get something else, the VA holidays, stuff like that. So it kind of just gives you an overarching perspective of how can I manage this virtual assistant in the most effective way. From that point forward, that virtual assistant's yours. It's your employee. We follow up. We make sure everything is good. And we have a few guarantees in place. The first one being we place within 10 business days. It's usually 5, but we say 10 just because we had a client one time who wanted a Spanish-speaking cold caller. I said, okay. I said, do you understand that you're asking someone to be trilingual, Tagalog, Spanish, and English?
Yeah.
That's hard. Yeah. It's hard to find. So it's going to take us 10 business days to find someone like that because we put a job out there, we're vetting, and people are like, oh, yeah, like applying for the job. I'm like, do you speak Spanish? Like, well, no. Like it says Spanish cold caller, man. Come on. So, but we usually place in about 5. Okay. Now, that's the first guarantee. Second guarantee is, let's just say before 45 days, you're like, man, this just isn't working out. They're not showing up, or they're not doing what I'm asking them to do, or they're just not a good employee. Now, I don't want people to get the wrong idea and think that that's specific to the Philippines. That can happen anywhere. You can have bad employees in America. You can have bad employees in Europe. You can have bad employees anywhere. That happens, right? And sometimes people are really, really good on the surface, and when you actually work with them, they're not. Now, that's why we have the guarantee in place. If that happens, because we believe before 45 days or a month and a half, you should know how this person is, right?
Yep.
And if you don't, that's probably on you because you haven't worked with them enough. Now, if they aren't a good employee, we place absolutely free. And usually that placement is, like I said, a lot quicker because we'll know who didn't get your job. And we can say, hey, this person was just as good. They just had, a year less of experience, something like that. So probably the same skill set, might even be a better worker. You never know. And that's, on the experience side, we tell people not to look at experience because some people that are young with no experience are hungry to be good at what you've asked them to be good at, right? And people that are older kind of take for granted the position because they're like, I've been doing it for 20 years. I don't need to try as hard to have the experience. So we try to provide the best applicant regardless of experience, regardless of exposure to the work, whatever, because we've been doing this. Like we understand who's going to be good, who's not going to be good. Yeah. And we just want to do the best for our clients that we can. So that process, even though that was a really long, I say speech by me, process is really only 3 steps. It's the identification, the vetting, and the placement.
Got it. Okay. So how did you come into this idea to do this with virtual assistants?
Yeah. So crazy thing, man. We started financial automation like I talked about before, and we got our own virtual assistant. Now, my business partner was in kind of like a mastermind / course deal, and they sourced virtual assistants for them. And she was really, really sweet, but that doesn't mean she's good at her job. Okay. And we paid her $2.50 an hour, and I felt bad about that too. It was one of those things where it was an inefficient relationship. That was our first virtual assistant as well. So we didn't really know what to expect. We didn't get training of how to actually manage and make this relationship efficient and effective. So it was like, okay, before we fired her though, we had hired our virtual assistant. That's our hiring manager today. She started as a lead generation specialist, $3 an hour, but she was amazing. First day on the job, she sends us an email of basically how we can make things better. That's what I want.
Oh, nice.
Communicate with me. If you see something I don't see, tell me, right? It's not going to hurt my feelings. So I was like, okay, we just got this VA. She's awesome. That's now our standards. And we ended up firing the initial employee. And then, a few months go down the road and me and my business partner are talking and we're like, man, like we could probably do this. Like we know what we're doing. We know what not to do at least. And how hard could it be? We're already organized. We know how to systemize businesses. Let's do it for other people. The issue was the company that sourced our hiring manager VA, they were our buddies, right? We don't want to compete with them, but we simply just talked to them and said, hey, like we're thinking about doing this. Like, is that okay? Stuff like that. So coincidentally, we started our staffing agency. That company disbanded coincidentally. Okay. And the 2 guys in there that we were the closest with partnered with us.
Oh, nice.
So we got really lucky there. So that was just kind of like, this is probably meant to be, I guess. So let's keep moving forward with it. So not only did me and my business partner, we had limited experience, I'm not going to lie, but we knew what we were doing. But we also got partnered with people who had been doing it for over a year, placed hundreds of VAs, and they knew the process down to a T. So now we have deployed all of that, and it's just an efficient relationship. So now, we're using that expertise to not only reach out to business owners individually, but also connect with just businesses and say, hey, let's connect, let's partner together, let's get access to your clients so that we can just provide them another resource so they can scale their business.
I love that. That's an excellent story too. And our founder, I've told it so many times on here, so I'm not going to tell it again, but our founder has a really cool story that's a little bit similar in some ways. But I know you've talked to a lot of entrepreneurs with your podcast. Mm-hmm. You find that your situation that you were in was typical, or is there a typical, are people in a spot where, like, I know, for instance, our founder, he had 2 businesses previously that failed, and then this is the 3rd one, and boom, it worked.
Yep.
Is that kind of situation typical, or is your situation typical?
I would say the non-fun answer is it depends.
Sure.
Right. Obviously, I'm gonna dive deeper into it, but I think everyone needs to understand that regardless of how excited you are about your first business venture, it might not work. Mm-hmm. You never know. Mm-hmm. Now, once you understand that, I believe that it takes experience to understand that and growing up. And honestly, it might take the business failing for them to understand that going forward. I don't think anyone's situation is typical. It just depends on, one, the market you're in, how you strategize going forward. Do you have connections? Do you have funding? Do you have A, B, C, X, Y, Z? It doesn't matter. But at the end of the day, I just think as entrepreneurs, you got to understand that you have to be able to adapt to the ever-changing environment, ever-changing economy. COVID is a great example of that. Two, you have to be resilient. Now, I'm not saying it's kind of contradictory. If you're in a business model that doesn't work, right, and you understand that and it's draining you mentally, physically, emotionally, financially, whatever, it's time to let go at that point, right? Now, if you have a business that you're like, man, this is it, there's so much opportunity, I just have to strategize on how to fix this one piece of the business, that's called resilience or perseverance, getting around that obstacle or destroying that obstacle in pursuit of your goal. Now, back to the letting go part, there's two different ways to look at it. There's letting go, and a guy I interviewed yesterday, Eric Malzone, coined this perfectly. It's letting go or quitting. They're two different things. Letting go is, like I said, it's just too much for you financially, emotionally. Maybe it's destroying your relationship with your spouse or your kids, or you and your business partner aren't getting along. Maybe you're destroying your financial situation. Maybe you're not happy. Maybe you dread going to work every day. Just let go, right? There's power in letting go.
Yeah.
But entrepreneurs try to be that person that never gave up, but I think there's more power in being honest and saying, I cannot do this anymore, right?
Sure. I agree.
There's quitting as well. Quitting is bad if you're just like, you just don't want to do something or it gets hard, right? Personal trainers, let's take that. If personal trainer, COVID happened, like, well, can't train in person, I quit.
Right.
That is not commendable to me, because there's other outlets out there to be a personal trainer still, right?
Yeah.
You just have to find them and be strategic. So that's what I try to teach entrepreneurs is, we let go of a business because it wasn't working. It was draining us financially, mentally. We were, working all hours of the day and it just wasn't working, right? We let go and we found something that was working. Yeah. So sometimes another successful business venture is on the other side of a failing business venture. You just have to be transparent. So that's why I say no one's situation is typical, because some people's first business is ridiculously scalable and successful. Others, it takes 10 to get there.
Sure. So you've been doing this for a while, and I know you said you do 3 shows a week. How many entrepreneurs have you interviewed?
So when I was with Budget Trek, in January, I released an episode every single day. Wow. Now, that's hard to get guests for every single day. Sure. So a lot of those are solo episodes. So I released I think it was 112 on Monday. Yeah. And, there's some breaks in there where I was trying to grow a business, probably 2 or 3 months where I just didn't release anything. And that's just me being hyper-focused, which I recommend that to people. But I think if I had to put a percentage on the interviews, I'd say probably 75 or 80, maybe, and it's just, people of all different backgrounds, all industries, all ages. And, at the end of the day, like I said, everybody's journey is different. There's some people I've talked to who are, 20 or 25 and they're ridiculously successful. And other people who said, yeah, I didn't become an entrepreneur until I was 50 and now I'm 55 and I'm successful, or I'm 60 and I'm successful, So, and again, what does success look like to you? That's a different conversation, but every single person you talk to, you just learn different things regardless of if it applies to my specific business or not. I think it's the mentality behind being an entrepreneur that's super, super important, that people fail to educate themselves on nowadays. You can learn funnels, you can learn ads, you can learn whatever, but the mentality is something that you just experience over time. And I think when you hear it from other people, you experience it quicker, right? Yeah. So it's very, very important for entrepreneurs to say, okay, I need to be resilient, but what does that even mean for me? I need to be able to adapt. What does that even mean to me, right? I can learn funnels, I can learn ads, I can learn lead generation, I can learn sales, but can I learn how to mentally be prepared when things change?
Yeah. Any lessons that have stuck out to you in particular?
Okay, so this was recent. I interviewed Bradley.
Okay.
A lot of people know who Bradley is, but a lot of people talk about follow your passions, and I don't. Do you cuss on this podcast or no?
You can.
Okay. He says I think following your passion is just a bunch of horse shit because people. He says I'm not saying money is happiness. He says, but money solves a lot of people's problems, right?
Yeah.
And problems make people unhappy. So he says for people that are so dead set on chasing your passions, that will quickly not become your passion when you have an entire business around it and you're not making any money, because that's stressful, very stressful. So he says, what I tell people to do is, if you have a business that's working, right? Maybe you're doing copywriting and you hate it, but you're good at it and you're making a lot of money. He says, do that until you make enough money to where you can quit and then chase your passion.
Sure.
He said, but people start their first business around their passion and it doesn't work, and then they quit trying to be an entrepreneur. He says, because you went about it the wrong way. So that stood out to me because, and I kind of agree with that. I think you should keep passions separate. Like, I think everyone needs a passion that's outside of business because it just keeps you human, right? It just keeps you happy and like refreshed and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But he just put in a good way of like, people hate money, but just focus on opportunities that can make you a lot of money, get really good at it, and then leave and do something in your passion with your passions, So that stuck out to me because, here's someone that's making a lot of money, well over 7 figures a year. And he's telling people, do not follow your passions.
Yeah, that's interesting because the money creates the opportunities for you.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay. How do you go about finding these guests?
So it's all through cold Instagram DMs, everything. Really? Yes. So my method for doing this is, let's say I'm trying to interview Gary V. Let's just say Gary V. One day, not yet, but one day. Sure. First is I'm going to look at who he's following that I've interviewed before. Let's say he's following Bradley, who I've interviewed. Let's say he's following, I don't know, Mark Randolph. He was the first CEO of Netflix. I've interviewed him. Let's say he's following those two people and someone else. I don't know. I'm going to say, hey, Gary, my name is Brady Morgan. Introduce myself from the get-go. I run a podcast called Entrepreneurism. Now I've stated why I'm reaching out to him, basically. Mm-hmm. From that, he's like, okay, he wants me as a guest. Second sentence is going to say, I've interviewed some of your friends, Bradley, Mark Randolph, and so-and-so. I'd love to have you as a guest as well. Super simple. It's not long. I'm not forcing them to read a paragraph. I'm saying, hey, I run a podcast. I've interviewed your friends. I'd love to interview you as well. So now I've broken down the barrier. There's 3 different steps in that. I've introduced myself. It was really clear and to the point. I said what I do, and there's credibility because I've interviewed his friends. Yeah. Fourth thing, there's a CTA. I'm basically asking him to act on my question. Sure. So if he doesn't answer, which a lot of people don't, I'll follow up 2 days later with a video DM. Same thing, but basically I just start with, hey, Gary, wanted to follow up. My name is Brady Morgan. I run the Entrepreneurism podcast. I've interviewed Bradley, Mark Randolph, and so. I'd love to have you as a guest. Let me know if you're interested. If he doesn't answer that, I'll send him another video DM. But the reason being is video DMs are more personal and people respect that more. So Bradley took me about 5 or 6 DMs. But what does he see when he actually answers? Oh shit, this guy's he's persistent. Yeah. He's followed me 6 or 7 times, right? So that's my whole method. And I'll usually batch reach out to people. I don't reach out to people every single day, maybe like once a week or once every 2 weeks. I'll reach out to like 20 or 25 people that I want to interview. Sometimes I don't even know who I want to interview. I'll just reach out to people like, it's like Bradley, people like Bradley. I'll just start going down the list because at the end of the day, all entrepreneurs. I just want to interview entrepreneurs. So that's been my method. I've been pretty successful at it. And people have to understand that like when you get guests, like you should be leveling up your guests as you go. Sure. You're starting at the bottom and maybe you don't know who this person is and you don't know anyone who they know. Cold DM in anyway. You don't have to know someone they've interviewed. That's just what I can do now because I've been doing it for so long, So if you don't, but once you get that one person, they probably more than likely know someone that's quote unquote bigger than them that you can get access to now. And then guess what? You just keep going and keep going and keep going and keep going. Now, are you always going to get access to that person? No. I shot my shot with Mark Randolph. He was the first CEO of Netflix, but he's not the current CEO of Netflix. But he co-founded it with Reed Hastings, who is the current CEO of Netflix, worth about $5 billion. I asked him for an introduction and never got it. That's fine. But at least I know I asked, you know? But now, even though I didn't get the introduction to Reed Hastings, who can I get an introduction to now because I've interviewed him? Yeah. Right. Yeah. So if you view guests as just future opportunities, I think that's where the execution and strategy lies, right? Don't think of a guest as this is it, like this is it, and the relationship's over at this point. No, because you can leverage that conversation you have with that person to create other relationships with other people.
That's excellent. Yeah. And have you noticed your following and everything getting bigger with the bigger?
Yes. Yeah, for sure. And it's a lot of it's through LinkedIn too. You know, I've been doing a lot of outreach through LinkedIn, but people have recognized that, one, it's consistency. Sure. Right? It would have been really easy for me after I took, you know, the 1 or 2 month hiatus to just quit because I hadn't done it. But people recognize the consistency. Yeah. Now I'm able to say, hey, my name's Brady Morgan. You don't know who I am. I run a podcast. I've interviewed these people. Funny enough, when I release an episode every single day in January, I hit number 33 on entrepreneurship podcasts in America. So now I can drop that stat. I'm not there anymore, but I can drop it. And I can say I have over 100 episodes. I'm doing it for over a year. I know what I'm doing. Would love to have you come listen. Right. So there's a credibility there as well. Is the audience where let me reframe that. The audience is not where I want it to be because I always want the audience to be bigger, right? It's just reaching more people through the message of just being an entrepreneur. And that's just something that happens over time. So I think that's a good lesson for people is the impact and influence of what you're doing, regardless of what it is going to grow over time with consistency, right? I think people expect their impact or influence to blow up just off like a month or 2 months of doing something. And that just doesn't happen, right? Because maybe, 10 years ago when Instagram was just starting or whatever, but now like what you do, Michael, is a lot of people probably do the same thing. Like what I do with VA staffing, a lot of people do the same thing. Podcasts, ton of other podcasters out there. But when you're consistent, it's not when you started, it's, hey, can I keep going when they stop doing what they're doing? Yep. That's the biggest thing.
I love that. I know I've taken up a lot of your time here though. So let's wrap up really quick. Is there anywhere, if people want to find you, what's the best way to get in touch?
Yeah, I'm most active on Instagram at Brady Morgan _. You can also find me on LinkedIn, just Brady Morgan. And then our website for VA staffing is vastaffing.agency. You can book a demo on there, or you can just read some information. We're really transparent about our pricing, the process, stuff like that, just because that's what we believe in. And yeah, that's probably the best way to get a hold of me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Brady. I really enjoyed your insights. I didn't know a ton about virtual assistants, so that was helpful for me. And I might take some of your tips for growing this thing.
Yeah, appreciate it, man.
All right, thank you. Bye, everybody.